I was declared mentally incompetent by my own children so they could control my $90 million fortune. $90 million. That's what I'd built in my lifetime. With my sweat, with my mind, with years of hard work. But one day, my children, the same children I raised, fed, put through college, they bribed a doctor, said I wasn't competent anymore, said I couldn't take care of myself. And a judge believed them. Now they're my legal guardians. They're spending my money, selling my houses. And me? I'm a prisoner in my own home, and nobody believes me when I say I'm perfectly sane. Listen, baby. Come sit with me. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to make your blood run cold. It's going to make you question everything you think you know about family, about trust, about the people you bring into this world and sacrifice everything for. Because this is a story about betrayal. The deepest kind of betrayal. The kind that comes from your own flesh and blood. And I need you to hear every word. Because somewhere out there, this is happening to someone else right now. And they need to know they're not alone. My name is Eve. I'm 72 years old. And I'm rich. Not regular rich. Not comfortable retirement rich. I'm $90 million rich. I built that fortune from nothing, baby. Started with a small real estate investment when I was 25. A rundown duplex in a neighborhood everybody said was worthless. But I saw potential where others saw decay. I renovated that duplex, rented it out, used the profit to buy another property, then another, and another. For 45 years, I worked like a woman possessed. I negotiated deals. I managed properties. I built an empire. Real estate holdings across 3 states, commercial buildings, apartment complexes, shopping centers. I was smart, ruthless when I needed to be, fair when I could be, and I never ever depended on a man to build my wealth. My ex-husband? He left when the kids were young, said I cared more about business than about him. Maybe he was right, but I had 3 children to feed. 3 mouths that depended on me. So I worked. And I succeeded. My children are Marcus, Diane, and Robert. I gave them everything, baby. Everything. Private schools, college tuition, graduate degrees, down payments on their first homes. I set up trust funds for each of them when they turned 21. Not the full fortune. I wasn't stupid enough to hand everything over when they were young. But enough. $1 million each to start their adult lives. Marcus became a lawyer. Diane went into finance. Robert started his own tech company with my money. I was proud of them. Thought I'd raised good people. People who understood the value of hard work and family. I was wrong. The trouble started 3 years ago. I was 69. Sharp as I'd ever been. Still managing my properties, still making deals, still growing my wealth. But my children started acting strange. They'd visit more often. All 3 of them, together, which was unusual. They'd ask questions about my health. Mom, are you taking your vitamins? Have you been to the doctor lately? Are you remembering to take your medications? I didn't have medications. I was healthy as a horse, but they kept asking. And then they started suggesting things. Mom, maybe you should slow down. You've worked hard enough. Don't you think it's time to retire? Enjoy life a little? We're worried about you handling all this stress at your age. At first, I thought they were being caring, thoughtful children concerned about their aging mother. But then Marcus said something that made my stomach turn. Mom, have you thought about what happens to your estate when when you're gone? I have a will, I said. Everything's taken care of. Right. But have you considered setting up a trust? Or maybe transferring some assets now? For tax purposes? I looked at him hard. Why are you asking me this, Marcus? I'm a lawyer, Mom. I'm just trying to help you protect what you've built. But the way he said it, something felt off. A few months later, Diane suggested I meet with a doctor. Just for a checkup, Mom. You haven't had a full physical in years. I feel fine. I know, but at your age, it's important to stay on top of things. I made you an appointment with Dr. Harrison. He's the best geriatric specialist in the state. I didn't want to go, but she kept pushing. All three of them kept pushing. So finally, I went. Dr. Harrison's office was sleek, modern, expensive looking. He was younger than I expected, maybe 50. Slick smile, cold eyes. Mrs. Thompson, your daughter tells me you've been having some memory issues? I haven't been having any memory issues. He made a note on his clipboard. It's common for patients to be unaware of their own cognitive decline. I'm not in cognitive decline. My memory is fine. Let's just do a few simple tests. For peace of mind? The tests were ridiculous, baby. He asked me to count backward from 100 by sevens. Asked me to remember 3 random words and repeat them back 5 minutes later. Asked me to draw a clock. I did everything perfectly. But the way he looked at me, like he'd already decided I was incompetent before I walked through the door. We'll send the results to your children, he said. Send them to me. I'm the patient. Of course. But since your daughter arranged the appointment, we'll copy her as well. 2 weeks later, Marcus called me. Mom, we need to talk. Can we come over? All 3 of them showed up at my house that evening. Sat down in my living room with serious faces. Marcus pulled out a folder. Mom, we got Dr. Harrison's report. And we're concerned. Concerned about what? He says you're showing signs of cognitive impairment. Early stage dementia, possibly. I laughed. Actually laughed. That's ridiculous. I'm fine. I took those tests and passed every single one. Mom, the doctor says you're not a reliable judge of your own condition. The doctor is wrong. Diane leaned forward, her voice soft. Pitying. Mom, we love you, and we want what's best for you. But we can't stand by and watch you make bad decisions that could hurt you. What bad decisions? I haven't made any bad decisions. Robert spoke up. You've been talking about selling the Highland property. That's one of your most valuable assets. Dr. Harrison thinks you're not in a position to make major financial decisions right now. I never said I was selling Highland. Mom, please. Marcus pulled out more papers. We've consulted with several specialists. They all agree. You need help. You need someone to manage your affairs until you're better. And that's when I saw it. The papers in his hand. Legal documents. Petitions for guardianship. They were trying to take control of my life. Get out, I said. Mom, get out of my house. They tried to calm me down. Tried to tell me they were doing this out of love. But I screamed until they left. And then, I sat in my empty house, shaking, realizing what was happening. My children were trying to have me declared incompetent, so they could control my fortune. I hired my own lawyer the next day. A woman named Patricia Chen. Sharp, tough, expensive. Can they do this? I asked her. Can they just declare me incompetent? If they can convince a judge, yes, they'll need medical evidence, testimony. But if they build a strong enough case. But I'm not incompetent. I'm perfectly fine. I believe you. But we need to prove it. And we need to move fast. If they file that petition, and a judge grants a temporary guardianship, you could lose control of your assets immediately. How do I stop them? We fight. We get our own medical evaluation. We show the court you're competent. And we expose whatever scheme they're running. But baby, here's what I didn't know. My children were already 3 steps ahead of me. They'd been planning this for months, maybe years. They'd consulted with lawyers, found a doctor willing to write whatever diagnosis they needed. And they'd been documenting everything. Every time I forgot a birthday, because I was busy working. Every time I got someone's name wrong, because I'm 70 years old and sometimes I mix up my grandkids' names. Every time I made a decision they didn't agree with. They kept notes, built a case, made me look like a confused old woman who couldn't take care of herself. The court hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. I spent those weeks gathering evidence of my competence. Financial records showing I was still successfully managing a $90 million portfolio. Testimony from my accountant, my property managers, my business partners. A cognitive evaluation from an independent neurologist who confirmed I had no signs of dementia. But my children had something more powerful. They had Dr. Harrison's report. They had concerned testimony from friends and neighbors they'd coached. And they had emotion. Marcus stood up in that courtroom and cried actual tears. "Your Honor, my mother is the strongest woman I've ever known. She built an empire from nothing. But she's not the same person anymore. She's confused, forgetful, making reckless decisions. And we're terrified she's going to lose everything she worked for, or worse, that someone will take advantage of her." Diane talked about how I'd called her by the wrong name last Christmas. Robert described a conversation where I allegedly forgot what year it was. They were lying. All of them. But they were convincing. My lawyer put me on the stand. "Mrs. Thompson, can you tell the court about your business operations?" I walked them through everything. My properties, my assets, my investment strategy. I was articulate, clear, detailed, but the judge kept glancing at Dr. Harrison's report. And when my children's lawyer cross-examined me, he tried to trip me up. "Mrs. Thompson, what did you have for breakfast this morning?" "Oatmeal and coffee." "And what about yesterday?" I paused, tried to remember. I think it was the same. I eat the same breakfast most days." "You think? Or, I'm not sure. Who remembers every breakfast?" He smiled. "Someone with a sharp memory would." It was a trap, baby. A trap designed to make me look confused. The judge took a week to make his decision. The longest week of my life. I barely slept. Barely ate. Patricia tried to reassure me. "You did great. Your testimony was strong. The medical evidence is on your side." But I had a terrible feeling in my gut. The judge ruled in favor of my children. Temporary guardianship. He said that while I appeared relatively functional, Dr. Harrison's evaluation raised serious concerns about my ability to manage my financial affairs. He said my children seemed genuinely concerned about my well-being. He said this was in my best interests. Temporary. That's what he called it. Just until I could be properly evaluated by a court-appointed expert. But temporary became permanent. Let me tell you what guardianship means, baby. It means I lost control of everything. My bank accounts, my properties, my investments. Everything went into a trust controlled by my children. They became my guardians. Marcus handled the legal decisions. Diane managed the finances. Robert dealt with the properties. And me? I became a prisoner. At first, it was subtle. They said I should stay home more. Rest. Take it easy. They hired a companion. A woman named Linda, who was supposed to help me, but was really there to watch me. They changed the locks on my office. Said I didn't need to worry about business anymore. They started reviewing my mail, monitoring my phone calls, just making sure no one's taking advantage of you, Mom. But then it got worse. They put me on an allowance, $5,000 a month, from my own $90 million fortune. $5,000. Like I was a child. "This is plenty for your needs, Mom. We're managing the rest." I tried to fight it. Called Patricia. But my children had cut off my access to legal funds. "We can't allow you to spend estate money on frivolous lawsuits, Mom." Patricia couldn't work for free. She had to drop my case. I watched helplessly as my children started dismantling my empire. They sold the Highland property, the one they'd claimed I was too incompetent to sell. Pocketed $15 million. "We're liquidating some assets to simplify the portfolio, Mom. For your own good." They sold 3 of my apartment buildings, transferred titles on 2 commercial properties, bought themselves new houses, new cars, took luxury vacations, all with my money, and I couldn't stop them. I tried to tell people what was happening, called my friends, my business associates, but my children had gotten there first. Mom's not well, they'd told everyone. She's saying strange things, making accusations. It's the dementia. No one believed me. My accountant wouldn't return my calls. My property managers only spoke to Marcus now. Even my own grandchildren looked at me with pity. Grandma's sick, they'd whisper. I wasn't sick. I was being robbed. By my own children. 9 months into the guardianship, I discovered the truth about Dr. Harrison. I still had access to the internet. They hadn't taken that away yet. And I started digging. Found out that Dr. Harrison had been sued twice for fraudulent evaluations in guardianship cases. Found out he had a history of being paid by families to declare elderly parents incompetent. Found out he'd lost his medical license in another state for ethical violations. My children had found a doctor for hire. Paid him to write a diagnosis that would get them control of my money. I documented everything. Every conversation. Every financial transaction I could access. Every lie they'd told. I kept notes hidden in my bedroom. Recorded phone calls when Linda wasn't paying attention. Built a case. Because I knew that eventually, I'd find a way to fight back. And then, one night, everything changed. I was supposed to be asleep, but I heard voices downstairs. Marcus, Diane, and Robert, having a meeting in my own house. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. How much longer do we have to keep this up? Robert was saying. Until the estate is fully transferred, Marcus replied. Another 6 months maybe. Then we can move her into a facility. A facility? Diane sounded uncertain. Is that really necessary? She's becoming a problem. Asking too many questions. We need her somewhere we can control her more easily. What about the evaluation? The judge ordered an independent evaluation. Marcus laughed. Already handled. Dr. Patel owes me a favor. He'll confirm the diagnosis. They'd bought another doctor. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about silencing me permanently. Bushism. LNQSMT DWM CharsRW Duis WPNJH Clum RW Minwism. Part 2 of 2. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to my children laugh downstairs as they planned to lock me away. To put me in a facility. To silence me forever. And I realized, if I didn't act now, I never would. The next morning, I waited until Linda went to the grocery store. She always went on Thursdays. Always took exactly 2 hours. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed my hidden phone. A burner I'd bought months ago with cash. And I started making calls. First, to the state's Adult Protective Services. I need to report financial exploitation, I told them. Ma'am, can you give me your name? Eve Thompson. I'm under a guardianship, and my guardians are stealing from me. There was a pause. Ma'am, if you're under guardianship, your guardians have legal authority. They bribed a doctor to get that guardianship. They're draining my accounts. Please, you have to help me. I'll make a note of your call, but you should understand that guardianship cases are handled by the courts. They weren't going to help. I called the local news station, asked to speak to an investigative reporter. I have a story, I said, about guardianship abuse, about children stealing from their parents. They transferred me 3 times before I got someone who'd listen. A young woman named Rachel Kim. Mrs. Thompson, these are serious allegations. Do you have evidence? Yes. Recordings. Financial records. Everything. Can you send them to me? I don't have email access. They've cut me off from everything. But I can meet you, please. I'm running out of time. She agreed to meet me the next day at a coffee shop 3 blocks from my house. Getting out of the house was harder than I expected. Linda had returned from the grocery store. She watched me constantly. "I'd like to take a walk," I told her. "It's cold outside, Eve. Maybe we should stay in." "I'm not asking permission. I'm going for a walk." She hesitated, then grabbed her coat. "I'll come with you." Of course she would. We walked around the block. Linda chatting about nothing, me planning my escape. When we got back, I told her I was tired. "Going to lie down." She nodded, settled onto the couch with her phone. And I climbed out my bedroom window. Baby, I'm 72 years old. I haven't climbed out a window since I was a teenager sneaking out to see boys, but desperation makes you do things you didn't think you could. I dropped into the bushes, scraped my arm on the siding, and ran. Actually ran. Down the street, around the corner, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. But I made it to the coffee shop. Rachel was already there, waiting. I showed her everything. The recordings of my children planning to institutionalize me. The financial records I'd managed to access, showing millions being moved out of my accounts. Dr. Harrison's history of fraud. The notes I'd kept documenting every lie, every manipulation, every theft. She listened to it all, her eyes getting wider with each piece of evidence. "Mrs. Thompson," she said finally, This is huge. If what you're saying is true, it's true. All of it. I'm going to need time to verify everything, to investigate. Can you stay somewhere safe while I work on this? I don't have anywhere to go. They've isolated me from everyone." She thought for a moment. "I have a colleague. She runs a safe house for vulnerable adults. Let me make a call." That's how I ended up living in a women's shelter for 6 weeks, baby. Me. With my $90 million fortune. Sharing a bedroom with 2 other women. Eating donated food. Hiding from my own children. But it was the first time in a year I'd felt free. Rachel worked fast. She contacted other families who'd been victimized by Dr. Harrison. Found 3 other elderly parents who'd been declared incompetent under suspicious circumstances. She interviewed former employees of my children who confirmed they'd been spending money recklessly. She got statements from my business associates proving I was competent, and she convinced a judge to order an emergency review of my guardianship. The new evaluation was done by Dr. Sarah Martinez, a real doctor, with integrity. She spent 3 days with me. Cognitive tests, memory assessments, interviews about my life, my business, my relationships. "Mrs. Thompson," she said at the end, "I don't know what Dr. Harrison was thinking. You're one of the sharpest 72-year-olds I've ever met. There's no sign of dementia, no cognitive impairment, nothing that would justify a guardianship. So I'm not crazy?" She smiled. "You're not crazy. You're a victim of financial exploitation, and we're going to make sure the court knows it." The hearing was scheduled for 2 months later. Rachel's story broke the week before. Front page of the local paper. Local business owner declares she was fraudulently placed under guardianship by her own children. The news spread like wildfire. National outlets picked it up. Suddenly, my story was everywhere. And people were outraged. My children tried to do damage control. Released a statement saying I was mentally unwell and they were heartbroken by my accusations. Said they'd only been trying to protect me. But Rachel had evidence. The recordings, the financial records, Dr. Harrison's history. And people weren't buying their lies anymore. The courtroom was packed the day of the hearing. Reporters, advocates, other families who'd been through similar situations. My children sat on one side with their lawyers, looking worried for the first time. I sat on the other side with Rachel and my new legal team, paid for by a legal advocacy organization that had taken up my case. The judge was different this time. Judge Alice Morrison. Black woman, maybe 60, sharp eyes that missed nothing. She'd read everything. Dr. Martinez's evaluation, the financial records, the recordings. And she was pissed. "Mr. Thompson," she said, addressing Marcus, "you're an officer of the court, a lawyer, and yet you participated in what appears to be a scheme to defraud your own mother. Do you have anything to say?" Marcus stood, his face pale. "Your Honor, we were acting in what we believed to be our mother's best interests. By draining her accounts, by selling her properties without her consent, by planning to institutionalize her. We were advised by medical professionals. You were advised by a doctor who's currently under investigation for fraud, a doctor you paid handsomely for his services. According to the records I've reviewed," she turned to Diane and Robert. "And you two. What do you have to say?" They said nothing. Just sat there, caught. Judge Morrison terminated the guardianship immediately. Restored my full rights, my access to my accounts, my control over my properties. And she didn't stop there. She ordered a full forensic audit of every transaction my children had made during the guardianship. She referred the case to the district attorney for potential criminal charges. And she ordered my children to repay every penny they'd stolen, with interest. The forensic audit took 6 months. When it was finished, the numbers made me sick. My children had stolen $23 million. $23 million. Properties sold below market value to their friends, who then sold them for huge profits and split the money. Management fees paid to companies they secretly owned. Cash withdrawals for my care that never went to my care. Luxury purchases. Vacations. Investment schemes. They'd treated my fortune like their personal piggy bank. The criminal trial started a year later. Marcus, Diane, and Robert were charged with elder abuse, fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. They tried to make deals. Tried to claim they'd been confused about what they were allowed to do as guardians. But the evidence was overwhelming. Especially the recordings, their own voices, laughing about how easy it was to manipulate me. Planning to lock me away. Counting my money like it was already theirs. Marcus got 8 years. Diane got 7. Robert got 6. The judge could have given them more, but my lawyers said this was actually a good outcome. Most cases like this never even make it to trial, she told me. Your children will actually serve time. That almost never happens. It didn't feel like justice, but it was something. I rebuilt my life slowly, took back control of my properties, my investments, my empire. Some of the damage couldn't be undone. Properties sold at a loss, opportunities missed, relationships destroyed. But I was free. And I was vindicated. People ask me sometimes, "Do you ever talk to your children?" No, never. They tried to write me from prison. Apology letters full of excuses and justifications. We were stressed. We thought we were helping. We never meant for things to go this far. I burned every letter. Because they weren't sorry they'd done it. They were sorry they'd been caught. My grandchildren reached out eventually. They were in their 20s by then. Old enough to understand what their parents had done. "Grandma, we didn't know," they said. "We thought you were really sick." I forgave them. They were victims too, in a way. Lied to by their parents. Used as props to make the guardianship seem more legitimate. We have a relationship now. Not perfect, but real. And I've made sure they know the truth about what happened. I'm 75 now. 3 years since I escaped that guardianship. And I'm using my experience to help others. I started a foundation that provides legal support to elderly people trapped in fraudulent guardianships. I speak at conferences. I lobby for guardianship reform. I tell my story to anyone who'll listen. Because, baby, what happened to me happens to thousands of people every year. Elderly parents declared incompetent by greedy family members or corrupt guardians. Their rights stripped away. Their money stolen. Their voices silenced. And nobody believes them when they say they're being abused. Because who's going to believe a crazy old person over their concerned children? But here's what I learned, baby. Here's the truth that kept me going through the darkest times. Your age doesn't determine your worth. Your children don't own you, and you have the right to fight back, no matter what anyone says. I was 72 years old when I climbed out that window. 72 when I ran down the street to meet a reporter. 72 when I stood up in court and demanded justice. And I won. Not because I was young or strong or powerful, but because I refused to be silent. So if you're listening to this and you're going through something similar, if someone's trying to take your power, your money, your voice, hear me. You are not helpless. You are not crazy. You are not too old to fight. Document everything. Record everything. Trust your gut. And find one person, just one, who believes you. That's all it takes to start. My relationship with Marcus, Diane, and Robert is gone forever. I raised them, loved them, gave them everything, and they tried to destroy me for money. That kind of betrayal doesn't heal. But I survived it. And I'm using my second chance to make sure other people survive it too. I still have nightmares sometimes. Dreams where I'm back in that house, trapped, watching Linda, knowing my children are downstairs planning my imprisonment. I wake up in a cold sweat, heart racing. But then I remember, I'm free. I'm in my own home. The locks are changed. My accounts are mine. And my children are in prison where they belong. The money I recovered, most of it anyway, I'm giving away. Not to my children. Never to them. But to my grandchildren, to charities, to the foundation, because I realized something, baby. That $90 million almost cost me my life, my freedom, my dignity, my mind. It turned my own children into monsters. And I don't want to spend my final years hoarding it like some dragon protecting treasure. I want to use it for good, to help people who can't help themselves. To fight a system that allows this kind of abuse to happen. Last month, I got a letter from Diane. She's up for parole in 2 years. Wanted to know if I'd write a letter of support to the parole board. Said she's changed, that she's sorry, that she wants a relationship with me again. I didn't respond. Because some betrayals are too deep to forgive. Some wounds don't heal just because time passes. And I owe her nothing. Not my forgiveness, not my support, not my love. She took everything from me once. I'm not giving her another chance. People tell me I'm bitter, that I should forgive and move on. But those people didn't have their children look them in the eye and declare them incompetent. Didn't have their life's work stolen by the people they trusted most. Didn't spend months as a prisoner in their own home. So I don't care what they think. I'm not bitter. I'm free. And I'm making sure this never happens to anyone else if I can help it. My legacy isn't going to be $90 million. It's going to be the laws I helped change, the people I helped save, the voice I gave to those who'd been silenced. That's worth more than any fortune. Final reflections. Age doesn't make you powerless. Silence does. The people who are supposed to love you can become your worst enemies when money is involved. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Document everything. Your truth needs evidence. One person believing you can change everything. Find that person. You're never too old to fight back. Never. Forgiveness is optional. Your peace is not. Your worth isn't determined by your bank account. It's determined by how you stand up when everything's been taken from you. Family is supposed to protect you, not prey on you. When they fail, you owe them nothing.